Hi, in this video we're going to look at quadriceps and hip flexors stretching. The challenge we have these days is with automation and also a lot of office work, then what happens is we tend to sit down a hell of a lot. What happens with this, we get adaptive shortening within the hip flexors and the quadriceps as well. In a sitting position we have a flexion of the hip so that the hip flexors then will shorten. Now the challenge with this is that it goes, they attach onto the femur, onto the thigh bone and up into the pelvis and up into the lower back as well. So what happens here is that we start getting lower back problems or challenges around the pelvis and the hip. With the quadriceps, what we have there is with the shortening, these attach onto the femur, then all the way down into the tibial tuberosity, over the knee, into the tibia, which now creates challenges within the knee, and we get things like chondromalacia patella, underside of the kneecap, osteoarthritis, and challenges like this. So what we need to look at is two types of stretches. We need to look at the static stretches so that we can start to look to overcome that adaptive shortening and lengthen them. And this is something we're going to be doing that is going to be post-exercise or throughout the day to try to rectify the challenges. The other stretching we need to look at is pre-workout, so we look at dynamic stretching so we get the muscles ready for the dynamic activity and also stretches the warming up as well. So let's look at the static side of things first. So the easiest option is when we start looking at the quadriceps is to just take it in this position here. So we take the knees together, we're looking to take the heel up towards the back side and keep the knees close together. From here we should be feeling down the front of the leg. If we have normally sort of stretched quadriceps, then sometimes we don't feel this. So what happens is we can do one of two things. We can take it backwards a little bit and we start to increase that stretch. What now happens is with that we start to bring in the rectus femoris, which is the hip flexor, which is going from the pelvis, the inside of the pelvis and down, or from the lower back and down. The other option is from this position we start to push the pelvis forwards. So we try to tilt the pelvis forwards into this, so we then increase the stretch into that area. We can combine that by taking it back slightly and also tip forwards that pelvis and push that pelvis forwards, and we start feeling that stretch a little bit more. Okay, we can take this further now, and we can start targeting a specific muscle, which is vastus medialis, which runs down the inside of the leg, the medial side of the leg. So this is one of the four quadriceps muscles. Now this one particularly gets quite a bit of hammering and starts to get adaptive shortening, particularly when we're doing things like cycling, where we start to have that extension aspect to it. We start to shorten the amount of movement, but on top of that, this particular muscle does this last third of the movement of extension within the leg. So to target this, what we need to look at doing is, as we take the leg up, we take it to the other hand. From here, we get a rotation of the knee, and from this point, we can now take it backwards. We're looking to try to keep it nice and lateral, straight down the lateral line, so it doesn't go out, sort of extend outwards. So we're not looking at this position, we're looking from here and then take it backwards. This one particularly creates challenges with tracking of the kneecap as well. So again, we start getting the kneecap coming across out of the femoral groove, and then we start getting that rubbing effect as it runs up and down. So that's particularly useful for that. We can extend these stretches as well. So what happens is here we can get a bench, or if you have a settee or something like that at home, we can now extend that. So by taking the foot onto the bench, the chair, coming forward so it is off the patella and is on this quadriceps, and from this position now we can then push forwards and ease forwards into it. So again, we take a bit more of a stretch onto here, we start coming into the hip flexors as well more into this, so we combine the two activities there. We can actually extend this further now, and if we understand the movements within the hip flexors as well, what we start doing is extending that even further. So coming down to a little bit easier, we can take it off the floor, come forwards to we're off the patella slightly. From this position we bring forwards, we push forwards with the pelvis, so the pelvis is going down to a 45-degree angle. What then happens is we rotate it slightly forwards on the side that is stretched behind. From here, we now take the arm across and over. Now this will extend it all the way through into the spine as well. So now the hip flexors get an even greater stretch. Make sure that we keep pushing forwards and also rotating downwards with the pelvis, keeping this arm across. Then obviously we'll do the other side, just so we can see the other side from here. From this position, 45 degrees with the body, push forward with the pelvis, rotate it downwards, and then take the arm across and over. And now we're feeling it through into the hip flexors and into the pelvic region. We can take that further if we want to. And again, we can take this onto the bench. We can take the leg into this position. From this position, push forwards, push downwards, and then over. Now this extends it even further and starts to get the quadriceps and also the hip flexors that a little bit much more. Okay, another option that we have in regards to looking at the quadriceps and also the hip flexors is to do what I like to call the Isle of Man stretch. With this, we come down to the floor. Lying backwards, we take one leg at 90 degrees and the other one pulling backwards at 90 degrees as well. Keeping the pelvis as flat on the floor as we possibly can, the shoulders. We ease the leg up and then we ease back with the leg here. We do have a couple of options here. We just leave it resting there and using the weight of the knee and the leg on this rear leg to actually ease it down towards the floor. Or what we can do to extend it once it gets used to it is use the musculature, and with the rear leg here we push the knee down towards the floor and hold it there. We look to hold for around about 15 seconds. Once we've done one side, then all we do, we'll swap to the other side, 90 degrees, take the other leg back, up, rest into it, and then to extend it, just ease the knees down to the floor of the rear. So now we start getting that rotation with the leg, and we start to hit the quads and the hip flexors in a slightly different way. So those are the static stretches we need to do. For dynamic stretching, all we do is we adapt slightly one of the exercises we've just done there. We need to bring in a movement so we have a sort of a rhythmical movement into it, so we start getting the muscle used to the lengthening and shortening aspect of activity. So this is what is termed as dynamic stretching. So we come down to the floor, taking the knee onto the floor, taking the other leg slightly forward from 90 degrees, and what we need to look at doing also is to have a supporting wall in front of us. From here we take the heel to the back side. As you notice, I'm off the patella now, okay? So I'm not pushing my patella into the femoral groove, I'm onto the end of the quadriceps. From this position now, here, I then just start moving through and into a stretch phase dynamically so that I can feel it stretching and the sensation coming up into the quadriceps and into the hip flexors. Looking to do around about 10 or 15 repetitions of this. Once I've done those 10 to 15 repetitions, I then hold in. So you're holding in, you're feeling the stretch onto it, and we're looking to hold for around about 15 seconds again. Once you've done the one leg, we'll obviously go to the other side and do the other leg, and we can do that multiple times to get ourselves ready for the activity that you're going to be going into. So this is excellent for looking at, for going to the sport-specific side of things, go for a run, pre-run, so that we start getting the quadriceps ready for this. And what will happen is, then if we start to stretch out the hip flexors and the quadriceps, then we relieve the pressure on the kneecap and enables it to sort of lift out of that femoral groove a little bit. It also takes the tension off the tibial tuberosity, which is a housemate's knee issue, which is one of the conditions that many sort of runners can be become accustomed to. Before workout, dynamic stretching. Post-workout, static stretching, and then just to get that sort of chronic adaptation of flexibility, start to look to do these conditioning exercises or these flexibility exercises on a regular basis throughout the day. Thank you.